When men get promoted, they say, thank you, I worked really hard. When women get promoted, they say, thank you, I got really lucky. And that really stuck with me because I have found myself doing that.
Welcome to Maker's Mindset. I'm your host, Nancy Twine. And in this episode, I'm in conversation with Artemis Patrick, President and CEO of Sephora North America. Artemis is responsible for developing growth strategies to maintain Sephora's position as the #1 prestige beauty omni-retailer. And with 18 years at Sephora, she's excelled in various roles, including Global Merchandising Officer and Chief Merchandising Officer for Sephora Americas. Known as the Brand Whisperer, Artemis has spearheaded groundbreaking initiatives and partnerships, significantly enhancing Sephora's market presence. She's also a celebrated industry leader holding multiple awards and a board position with Cosmetic Executive Women. Let's go ahead and jump in. So welcome, Artemis. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you today. Believe it or not, this year actually marks 10 years of the Briogeo-Sephora partnership, which is insane. And I'm just so grateful because I've learned and I've grown so much over the past decade just through learning from some of the best merchants in the world at Sephora. And today I'm so excited to share so many of those insights with our Maker's Mindset audience straight from you, the new CEO of Sephora North America. And over the past 18 years, you've taken on several roles at Sephora. And I'm so curious to know how those previous roles led to this one, and what traits or experiences do you think helped to support your rise to the top?
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, Nancy. I can't believe it's been 10 years. It feels like yesterday, and yet like 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So happy to be here, and grateful for you taking the time as well. So I've been with Sephora for over 18 years. I started as the head of e-commerce merchandising, and that was really my background when I started in 2006. So I had about 6 years of e-commerce merchandising experience. So I was an expert at that time because it was a fairly new thing, although our website had been around since 1999, worked through e-commerce, and then after about 6 years became the general manager of Sephora inside JCPenney, which was very large business at the time. It was over $1 billion and 600 stores, and very revolutionary for its time. I mean, I remember when the first store opened, and it was very different, and nobody had done anything like that before. And then through that, I moved into North America merchandising, and then global merchandising, and then president, and now CEO. What I would say is there's, common factors through that. I think through all my years, I've always just had a general curiosity. I don't think, people will ask me, where are you going to be 3-4 years from now? Or how did you get here? And in my mind, it's always a day by day and just asking questions and being curious. For example, when I became the GM of Sephora inside JCPenney, I didn't have general management experience. I was e-commerce. I was merchandising. I used that time to learn about how to run a P&L and get into the functions that maybe I was less familiar with, which at the time was more around education and supply chain. So I think it's just being naturally curious. And I'm very, very lucky that I work for a company where we were joking the other day that every day feels like you have a new job, because I think the industry, for one, is really exciting and evolving, but Sephora in its way is so innovative. And so there always seems to be something new ideas, but still remaining focused on our priorities. So I think, it's that combination of who I am, but also Sephora as an organization really being open to new ideas and new, ways of people paving their career.
And there's one thing that you left out, but maybe you wouldn't say it about yourself, but you just have such this charisma, and you really just embody the Sephora brand from just like a presence perspective. And I think that's so important too.
I definitely think you have to have a love of beauty somehow, right? And I think that, whether it be, you don't have to, be using all the products all the time, but I think that having a love for the industry, which is very different, as you know, than many other industries, it moves really fast. It's a very tactile industry, and it's an emotional one, right? And creating that bond with the clients, with the brands, with our employees. It's something we live and breathe. And I think that you really pointed that out, is that I think the common thread among leadership is there's a love for the industry.
Yeah. And actually, on that note, obviously, no one succeeds alone. So when it comes to building a team, what type of people do you look for? What's important to you?
First and foremost, I look for people that are different than me. And I think that's really, really important. It's really easy to, fall back on something that's familiar with you, or familiar to you. And one of the examples I use is when I was the general manager of Sephora inside JCPenney, I'd come from merchandising. And I think the head merchant was like, oh boy, here she comes. She's going to come to all my market meetings. And it was actually the least amount of time because it was the area I could go in and out of very, very quickly. And also I had a deep trust with the head merchant at the time. And so I think it's really goes back to the curiosity, but building diverse teams is so important, and it's not just about diversity in how we look, but diversity in how we think. And I really do honor and respect different opinions. And then once you have that, it's not just about diversity, it's also about inclusion and making sure that you work to create that trust. It's what I call it's shared responsibility. And so we all have a responsibility to create a team. And I really do spend time on that, not just on the what, but also on the how.
Absolutely. And I will say I've sat through, I think, almost 10 Sephora brand summit. And one of the things that I think is so great about Sephora that I've learned a lot from is it's not just having a vision, but it's setting these goals and then creating a plan for how you're going to get there. I'm curious to know how you keep your teams motivated and inspired, especially when some of those goals may feel really ambitious. How do you do that?
Yeah. I do think that focus and prioritization are critical. And so to your point, I think that has been one of the biggest successes of Sephora is we do create a strat plan. We're very focused. I believe that it is my job to remove obstacles. So I don't just share the plan, I share how we're going to get there. And when we hit roadblocks, I'm very open about it. I think giving context to employees, being transparent about the wins and about the opportunities is critical, right? And that allows you to pivot if you need to. But I also think that you have to build a strat plan that leaves some room for innovation. If you take up all your resources with your 10 focus priorities and don't even leave 5%, 8%, whatever it is you decide in tech and in other areas that are enablers, then when new ideas come up, you have to give something up. Right. So I think that's how I think about it. Here's our focus priorities. And then here's a couple of innovative ideas we can test quickly, learn fast, and either success fast or fail fast and move on. And I think you have to leave room for that as a leader.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to the topic of CEO because I have a lot of female founder friends who are first-time CEOs of their company. This is not necessarily even something that, they aspired to be. It just kind of happened. And, oftentimes there's this, thought of imposter syndrome, doing something for the first time. Maybe you don't have all the answers, things like that. So what perspective would you give to a first-time CEO who's maybe struggling to build that confidence?
I didn't even know what that term was for a long time. I felt it, but I didn't know there was a name for it. And the first time that it came to light for me, this idea of imposter syndrome was in Sheryl Sandberg's book. And she, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she says something to the effect of, when men get promoted, they say, thank you, I worked really hard. When women get promoted, they say, thank you, I got really lucky. And that really stuck with me because I have found myself doing that. And it's normal because there aren't a lot of female CEOs. So of course you think that maybe the stars were aligned in a certain way, or you also give credit to bosses, which you should. But you worked hard for that. You didn't get here by accident. It wasn't because of some, the stars were aligned, right? Yeah. And I think that acknowledging that, first of all, even naming it, and then acknowledging it and knowing that so many other female CEOs feel that way, I think is just, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. And I think just saying, I got here from hard work.
Absolutely. And that's why I think, transitions like yours to CEO really creates this, situation of seeing is believing. So more people seeing female CEOs running businesses like Sephora, just, innately you start to believe, wow, I can do that too. And so that's a huge example.
And yesterday we just announced our first female CFO in North America. It's exciting. I think change is coming.
So exciting. So I want to switch gears and talk about Sephora from the brand lens, because for so many beauty and wellness founders, it seems like getting into Sephora is the pinnacle of success. But both of us know that getting in is just half the battle. You actually have to set the business up for success over the long haul. So in a saturated market where you have so many brands that are competing within the same category, what's important for brands to stand out and actually capture, that market share?
Right. I start with there's really three fundamental things that we look for when we're launching new brands. And first and foremost, I do say that our number one job is to make the brands that we have successful. That is our number one job. So that is a lot of effort right there. So it's true that once you're in, it's still a lot of work, but I think that I hope you have felt too that Sephora is committed to the longevity of the brand. And it's really not about overnight success. We believe in the long game. So that's first and foremost. But if you are a new brand and you've come in, again, imposter syndrome, right? Like we've chosen you for a reason.
Right.
and it comes down to me, three fundamental things. One is the brand story. Is it a unique story and something, I think back to your story and how you were really filling a need in the market and an assortment gap. And the products didn't exist for what you were trying to solve for. And you had a great story and you were passionate about it. I think that's super important. I think obviously the product has to be great, innovative product with great results. And then ultimately, and it doesn't have to be right out the gates, but ultimately a good team around you. Yeah. And I think it's so key. And, and we'll help you with that. We'll tell you, it's probably time for a general manager, and some of the things that you may not think through, like supply chain and ops and those kinds of things, need to sometimes come first. And also the founder has to know what they're good at, right? Yeah. And most founders, it's about the brand, it's about the marketing, it's about the product. Yeah. You're not going to be I don't expect you to be the supply chain, technician here. But you need to then find someone who could do what only they can do. And so that you can keep doing what only you can do. And as long as you remain focused on that, I think the growth will come.
Number 3 is so important. And I feel like looking back on my own journey, that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made, was waiting so long to bring in a management team, because sometimes you feel like you have to do everything, on your own, or maybe, who's going to understand my vision or do it the way that I do, but you have to really trust in building that right team. So I love that Sephora is helping, support that.
Yeah. We say that our part-time job is recruitment for our brands.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So going a bit deeper, I'm curious to know what some of the common through lines are between brands that start as indie and become legacy at Sephora.
Yeah. It goes back to the core DNA of the brand. And as long as you don't lose sight of that, I think that's critical. Where I have unfortunately seen brands sometimes lose their way is too much emphasis on what the competition is doing. And in the same way that I just said earlier, as a leader, my job is to keep my team focused on our priorities. And sure, there's some room for innovation and change, but the priorities are the priorities. And a founder should think about it the same way. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. There's so much out there. Social has completely changed the game. I mean, you got to look left, you got to look right, and things go up, things go down faster than they've ever gone before. So I'm not saying it's easy, but it's critical to success. And also just making sure that your growth is steady. And I know, again, it's easy to get caught up in all the multiples and all that kind of thing. But, again, the most successful brands have been the ones that have grown over time. And don't have that huge spike, because usually with a huge spike comes a huge fall too.
Right. Because oftentimes you now next year need to comp this huge spike. And then maybe you're making these short-term decisions that aren't right for the brand long-term, but because you have to hit that number. So that makes total sense. So Sephora is obviously known for creating these really close partnerships with the brands that they work with. What's your philosophy on what it takes to build a successful relationship between a brand and a merchant?
I think for me, a successful relationship between a brand and a merchant is a successful relationship in anything. I think both parties have to feel like they're benefiting from it. We look at everything we do, from the negotiations of the contract to how we determine when we roll a brand out to marketing campaigns as a win-win. We don't believe that it's about one party winning over another. And I think that's how any relationship is built, right? And so, for us, it really is a partnership, and we don't say vendor, we say brand partner, that there's a reason for that. And I think it really starts with Sephora's DNA. So thinking back to when we first came to the US in, our first store in Soho in 1998, brands didn't want to work with us. So we were on the other side, right? And at that time, it was really about department stores, and it was really hard to get brands to come to Sephora. So we were like, well, we need to fill something in the shelves. And so we started this idea of, getting in these indie brands that didn't have other ways to tell their stories, brands that are now household names like Too Faced or Tarte, or, if you think about Urban Decay, I mean, this was really the launching pad for a lot of these brands. And so just out of sheer survival, we realized the importance of this relationship and building those indie brands. And so I think that, there's now accelerated programs and, other retailers or, brand incubator departments, but that's literally what we live and breathe. And it's what every person throughout the entire company, not just merchants, really feel.
Taking a step deeper, I think it was Sephora who actually coined this term in the kitchen, getting in the kitchen with brands. What does that mean exactly?
Well, you did your brand literally in the kitchen. Yeah. So I think that's near and dear to your heart. But yes, it's getting in there early, right? And so we're doing the cooking with you. We much prefer that over an end presentation. We like it messy. We like it, like when you're in the kitchen baking or cooking, because that's where the ideas come to life. And that's where the magic happens.
You can tweak the recipes in the process.
That's
exactly.
Right. And having the brand founder there through that process is so critical to us. We've had, other sort of pitches to us where maybe the founder wasn't even on the call or things like that. And we were like, immediately no. The brand founder is the chef, yes. right? Right. And we're here to help the chef make the best souffle they possibly can. And that's really how it started. And it's really stuck.
Absolutely. Well, I know personally, and for many brands, one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to scaling your business at Sephora is finding the capital to do so. And you have to be very thoughtful about when you take that money, who you take it from. From your experience, what do you think brands should really be focused on when it comes to taking on a investment partner? What's important?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, certainly you're great at this. And I know you've given a lot of advice to some of our brand accelerator cohorts, which we really appreciate because you're coming at a perspective of a founder. I can tell you from a perspective of a retailer, it really is about the timing and not doing it too early. I think that, that's where I've seen brands sometimes struggle is when they, go and get that a little bit too early. Also, the amount, right? You want to continue to own as much as you can for as long as you can, as you know. And I would say that in the process, it is an interview. You're interviewing them just like they're, again, back to the imposter syndrome, right? Like, don't think, you're not the lucky one because they're talking to you. They're lucky also to be talking to you. So, go in at it, ask questions, interview them like you would any other partner. And I think and for every brand, it's different because it's what you need in that moment. Do you need capital for supply chain or operations? Has this fund done that before? Do they have other examples of that, right? And so it depends on what you're looking for and what they're good at. And the other thing I would say is just ask other founders. This is probably the most generous industry out there, I believe. I
agree. I totally agree.
We are willing to share and pay it forward. Yeah. So just go out there and say, hey, did you interview them? Did you talk to them? What was your experience? And take that all in. Do your research.
I love that advice. And it's so interesting. I don't know how unique it is to beauty. It feels unique, but I've even reached out to founders in the same category as me. And we've shared contacts and advice and all sorts of things. So I absolutely love that. And then I also love what you said about taking investment too early. And I think the caution there is that, well, it's twofold. When you bring on an investor, inevitably there are new formalities that come about with running the day-to-day. So you have to sort of shift headspace from focusing on the vision of the brand to kind of professionalizing certain aspects. And that can put important things with the brand on hold. And then I also think in the beginning, it's okay to test and learn. You're going to get a lot of things right, but you're going to get some things wrong too. Mm-hmm. And I find that it's a little harder to take those risks when you know you have a partner in the business. Right. And so that's really what I've experienced.
That's right. And that's why the team part is important, right? Because to your first point, if it is going to take up some headspace, it would be nice to have maybe a general manager in place who could take that on, right, and making sure that that general manager has experience in that field. To me, it's a sequential thing, doing it in the right order at the right speed.
Definitely. So I want to talk a little bit about the secret sauce behind Sephora, because inevitably you were, the most successful, prominent, well-known beauty retailer in the world. And there's so much that we can learn from how Sephora does business. And Sephora has a renowned customer loyalty program. What elements of that program do you think are most important with keeping clients engaged and loyal to the Sephora brand?
Yeah. So I was actually with Sephora when we launched our Beauty Insider program. In fact, when I started, we didn't even have a loyalty program. So, but what I can say is from day one, when we launched it, it has always been about the experience and the emotional connection with our clients. It's never been this transactional thing. And we did create this program that had other elements besides promotionality. We started it off with events. We have great samples. It's these great experiences, and always thinking about how we make this experience, more meaningful for our clients. So that's why today we have over 40 million beauty insiders in North America. We actually gained over 8 million since the launch of Sephora at Kohl's. So that just tells you there's still a whole lot of people out there who, don't know about the program. So there's a lot of opportunity with growth in terms of the number, but we also look at the retention and we look at the connection our current beauty insiders have. So another example is last fall, we launched our Beauty Insider Challenges. So that's this gamification thing that we launched, and it's really cool, and it allows us to engage with our clients. So for example, get 100 points by getting a Mobile Color IQ foundation scan, or get 100 points by using our recycling program, and that building that engagement. And it's been hugely successful. We've had over 5 million people opt into the challenge just since we launched it last year. So
wow.
It's really exciting, and there's a lot more of that to come.
Oh, that's so exciting. And you talked a bit about experiences, and can you talk a little bit more about the importance of the retail presence? Obviously, digital has become such a big part of Sephora's overall business, but when it comes to that in-store experience, talk to me about how that helps to support, the overall funnel.
Yeah. So to your point, digital is so critical. And as I had mentioned earlier, we were one of the first, to have this e-commerce platform in such a way in 1999. And from day one, digital hasn't just been a place for us to, for people to shop, but to experience and storytell. So we have so much content and reviews and user-generated content. And we really, really work on the omni experience. So making sure that it also feeds into same-day delivery and buy online, pick up in store. So it's such an important part of the journey. But to your point, retail is so important to us. I mean, we are now going to be in over 650 stores across US and Canada. We'll be in all Kohl's locations by next year. And the reason for that, and they continue to be so successful, is our people, hands down. Our beauty advisors are our secret sauce. From day one, it's been unbiased. They're not commissioned. They're highly educated and trained. I was just visiting stores in Calgary, and I'm always in shock. I'm like, how do you keep that? I mean, I was a merchant and I don't have that much information in my head. And, the way that they can speak to the products and
bounce across categories.
Across categories. They're bopping from fragrance to body to hair. It's pretty amazing. Right. So first and foremost, that's our secret sauce. And then I would say the product differentiation and, the way we merchandise our stores, areas like Next Big Thing where you could come and try some of these newer brands. And I think Sephora at the end of the day is a place of discovery. Yes. And I think our stories, it comes to life in our stores. And to that point about the importance of our stores, I shared recently, and it's about to come to life in the next week, that we are on a path to renovate every single one of our stores over the next 5 to 6 years. We're calling it the Future Footprint Project. And our stores in America are 26 years old, 20 years old in Canada. And we're going to go back and we're going to make sure that the experience, whether you're in Boise, Idaho, or in Montreal, that your experience is the same. So, look out for that in the coming months. We're very excited. The first one will open at the end of September. So
that is so exciting. Wow. Yeah. So many things going on.
So many things.
Yeah. Right. Well, one of the things that's very near and dear to my heart is the fact that Sephora has been such a trailblazer in driving inclusive beauty through brands and founders and products. But how do you make sure that these initiatives actually resonate with who they're for and actually meet the needs of those diverse consumers?
Well, we have, as you know, an Accelerate program, and it actually officially kicked off in 2016. And we're very proud that we've now had over 60 brands be part of the Accelerate program. Many of them have launched already with Sephora. But, before 2016, we've always had an unofficial accelerator program. And that's the experience that you had, and I hope many other brands, in terms of, what we talked about, getting in the kitchen with the merchants. And so for us, it's really no different, right? We are looking for a consumer need and we're looking for brands to fill it. And the reason the Accelerate program exists is because we know that historically BIPOC founders have been underfunded. And so it's what we always do every single day, and with a special emphasis on BIPOC founders, because we also know that the reality is that people should be buying products from people who have founders who look like them, right? And, I think about my daughter who has curly, coily, textured hair. And when I was her age, I couldn't find those products, right? And now, she has access to these products because founders with hair like hers are making products for her. And it's common sense. It's good business. And so it's been quite fluid for us because it's just always been part of who we are.
Absolutely. And I'm so fortunate to have been able to partner with Sephora Accelerate with my Dreammakers Founder Grant, which helps to support BIPOC female entrepreneurs with no strings attached capital. And Sephora Accelerate has just been such a catalyst for that pipeline of brands into Sephora. Can you just talk a little bit more about why you think that's important and how it's fueling that overall vision?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was, something that was a bit of a no-brainer when the proposal was made to us. So as I mentioned, in 2016, we had an Accelerate program. And then in 2020, Aurora James reached out to us and asked us to be part of the 15% pledge. We already knew Aurora and, really had deep respect for her, but it didn't take us any time. And we're very proud to have been the first major retailer to sign the pledge. And for me, why it's important is that it's not just about a number. And that's what I really loved about the pledge. It was about working through a framework to create long-term change. And the first thing you had to do was look inside. And it's something that we hadn't done. We were going day by day and we thought we had this great diverse assortment. And then, when she challenged us, we looked at our assortment, and actually only 3% of our brands were from Black founders. And so you start with recognition of what you currently have, right? And so are we going to get to 15 the next day? No, but we're going to create a framework whereby we can continue to grow that. And since we've taken the pledge, I'm so proud that we've more than doubled our assortment in Black-owned brands. And we've actually reached 15% in hair.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. That's very so exciting. My category, hair. I love it. I love it.
Glad you like that.
Yes. Well, what you've been able to achieve with your career, it's so inspiring and so motivating, but I'm sure that it hasn't come without its set of challenges and sacrifices. So what personal routines or practices do you incorporate to manage being a CEO with being a wife, a mother, and a friend?
Well, I think first and foremost is forgiveness for yourself. I think when I was younger, especially right when I had my daughter, I had these really unrealistic notions of this word balance. And I think just recognizing that what you see on social media is not real, right? And I was like, wait a minute, it's a curation, right? That's not what my morning looks like. And I think, one of the things that was really important to me, and I learned early on, and a friend told me, is that you don't have to go to everything that your kid is doing, right? But you have to go to the things that are meaningful to them and then honor your commitment. So that's the thing. I know what's important to my daughter. And when I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. And I think that is more important. It's really about quality versus quantity. So I think once I got through that, it allowed me to create space and create time to do my work and to have time for me, because, you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I'm a huge believer in that. Well, so much of the Maker's Mindset audiences, they're entrepreneurs, they're juggling the day-to-day challenges of running a business. And you have this unique vantage point of being able to see so many founders rise above competition and comparison and all the challenges. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to a founder who's maybe struggling with all the noise and they're just trying to do it all?
Yeah, it's just, it's simple, but I would just say stay true to yourself. You got here for a reason. It wasn't by accident. You got here on your own. And as long as you continue to focus on what makes you unique, that's going to keep you going.
Well, thank you so much, Artemis. And before we wrap up, we're actually going to pivot. This is the really fun part. I mean, the whole thing has been fun.
Yes.
But it's 5 fire facts, which is a rapid fire interview question just for our audience to get to know you a little bit more candidly and personally. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. A city that inspires you creatively?
Definitely London. I absolutely love the shopping at London. I'm a shopper at heart. I do it professionally and personally. I think in my next life, I want to come back living in the pajama department of the Liberty department store. It's amazing.
Cozy PJs.
I know. So definitely London.
Favorite way to spend a Sunday?
Morning yoga at Core Power Yoga. Love it. That is definitely my happy place and where I reset and recharge. Brunch with friends, and then an evening at home with the family, watching Netflix and ordering Persian food.
The most unusual or interesting item in your office? And I'm really curious about that one.
I have this print, and I love it, that I bought years ago, and it says, masquerading as a normal person is exhausting. And I love that because it's a reminder that it's just harder to be someone you're not. So just be yourself.
Love that. Favorite way to celebrate major milestones?
Did I mention shopping already? But if it's a big celebration, I love going to Palm Springs. That's my happy place. There's something about the mountains that just calm me. And we have an amazing community of friends in Palm Springs. So I love it.
I've actually never been, but I'm going for the first time this November.
Okay. Well, if I'm down there, I'll send you a list of where to go.
Perfect.
Yeah. Where to shop, of course, and where to eat.
All the things. Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Last one project that you're most proud of at Sephora.
Well, we talked about the 15% pledge. I definitely think that's something that has really stuck with me. And, we do a lot of innovating, exciting things at Sephora, but I think it was the timing. It was, when we just made the decision to pivot the Accelerate program and focus in partnership with the 15% pledge, it was the summer of 2020. And it was hard. We were all at home. There was a lot going on, obviously, in the world. And the moment that we were on the Zoom, and there was 6 women on the Zoom, and we made the decision to sign the pledge, I mean, we all teared up because it was this moment of, we can make a difference. And in a time where we were so isolated, it was that much more meaningful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, Artemis, that you want to leave our audience with or share or any of it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it goes back to just be your unique self. I don't know how else to say it. I really believe in transparency and authenticity as a leader. I think those are words people throw around a lot, but it's so critical. And one of the things I always say, at work, if people are having problems or there's something going on, and by the way, I might have this too, where I react to, that person doesn't know what they're doing or something like that. I always just say, you know what? Most people get up in the morning wanting to do a good job, right? Nobody gets up saying, I'm going to be a jerk today, right? As far as I know, right? Maybe a couple people, but nobody that I know personally. And I just think it's, have empathy and give people the benefit of the doubt and tell them where you're coming from. And for the most part, it'll work out. Most people are actually good people, and it's okay to have differences, but give each other a break.
I agree with that philosophy. Well, Artemis, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Nancy. It was such a pleasure.
So to stay connected with Artemis, the Maker's Mindset community, and me, check out all the details in the episode description below, and check out Spotify or Apple Podcasts to hear a few bonus reflections from me on this episode. And don't forget to subscribe to this series, leave a review, and share this episode with your community. Thanks so much for tuning in.